do that. They don't understand that the power in this country is the power of the people, and that they don't have to do anything that's outside the bounds of the Constitution. And the government can be held within the bounds, the restraints that the Constitution put upon it, that our founding fathers created so that the American people could never be enslaved. That nobody could come and invade this country and enslave the American people. The only way it could be done is from within if the American people allowed it to be done. Well, let me give you a vision of the future. There will be no money. There won't be any driver's licenses. There won't be any insurance cards or anything like that. Everybody will have an account on a computer. Everybody will have a computer chip implant somewhere on their body that will access the computer. Everybody, when they go to work, will get so many credits for that work, and they can go out and wave their little computer chip in their hand or whatever it is under a scanner at the supermarket and buy whatever they've got credits to buy. And if they don't have credits, they've got to stay home until they get some credits. What's insane about it is that the American people think that that would be convenient or that that would be good for them. It is the ultimate in-run goal to enslave the populace and to steal what's left that's not already stolen by the elite who are engineering and machinizing all of this stuff to make it come about. The goal of a debt-based economy is not to get caught stealing. And that's what they're doing, stealing the wealth and the substance and the nation right out from under us, and that's the only end result that can come out of a debt-based economy. And the only way that they can't get caught is if the people allow them to go to a cashless system. Then they can never get caught. But if they don't go to a cashless system, eventually the economy will collapse and they're going to get caught. They want to go to a cashless system, and that's why they ultimately have to. Anybody understands how this economy works and what the end result of a debt-based economy where the interest is never created or printed and the way that it works have to collapse, or they have to go to a totally cashless system in order that they don't get caught and are able to perpetuate the theft. The only way to keep it going until they do that is to keep creating more money, which creates more inflation, which devalues the value of what everybody is earning and making, and that's why everybody feels more and more strain every year and keeps sucking more and more out of the system through the bogus Internal Revenue Service income tax system so that they can keep from getting caught as long as possible. Well, they are 3-year-olds. That's their mentality. The average American has never had an original thought in his entire life or her entire life. And if they're not told what to think, they cannot think. And that's the truth. Clinton didn't do anything except eliminate the deficit. You know how you eliminate the deficit? You either don't spend as much so that you stay within the bounds allotted by Congress, or you have Congress pass more allotments so that you can spend more than what you need to spend. It did not pay off the national debt, did not balance the budget. Have a deficit. A deficit is when you spend more than what you've been given. So when he says we got a zero deficit, that means absolutely nothing except Congress is allotting more money for the government to spend because the government is not spending less. They're spending more than they ever have had. Well, ever since 1988, when I began telling the world, not just the American people, but the world, about Majesty 12, which is the plan to enslave the human race in a world totalitarian socialist government, the merger of the military of the United States and what used to be known as the old Soviet Union under NATO, which is occurring now, to create the world police force. Most people don't understand that NATO is an arm of the United Nations. It was formed auspices of the United Nations Charter and takes its orders from the Security Council. Warsaw Pact was also formed under the auspices of the United Nations Charter and was an arm of the United Nations and took its orders also from the Security Council. The Cold War was a total farce, and that's why we never had any military conflicts with the Soviet Union. Well, if they've passed a world court, how can they have a world court if there is sovereign nations? Because sovereign nations are not subject to any courts but their own. So how can they have a world court unless there's a world government to which sovereign nations have given up their sovereignty? Does the Constitution for the United States of America say that we are subject to the dictates or the jurisdiction or the rulings of a world court? Does it say that anywhere in the Constitution? No, that's wrong. All are paid the so-called income tax and excise tax almost, it's either 11 or 12 years, I forget which. I've never made a secret of that. I am not liable for the so-called income tax administered by the so-called Internal Revenue Service. And I am not, but I do pay all lawful and constitutional taxes, which I am required to pay and always will. Well, a lawful tax would be a state sales tax down at your local grocery store. A lawful tax would be a property tax for which you paid for it with the fiat Federal Reserve notes instead of gold or silver coin. You can't pay off a debt with a debt. So you never really purchase anything in this country, in this debt-based economy, with the fiat Federal Reserve notes. All you do is take possession under a lease, and the ownership stays with the government. That's why you get a warrant deed when you pay off your house instead of the patent title to the property, and that's why you get a certificate of title when you think you paid for your automobile instead of the actual patent title to that property. Fraud. It's all fraud. Oh, yeah. The American people are standing inside the gates of Disneyland holding their e-ticket, which has expired. None of the rides are working, and they're just having a great time. I didn't say in the next 2 years. I said in the next very few years. I don't have a crystal ball. God does not whisper in my ear. I'm not a prophet, and I'm not a psychic. From what I saw in that plan when I was with ONI, and what I have researched since then, tells me that within a very few years, the American people are either going to be totally enslaved in the worst enslavement that you can even dream of, or there's going to be a civil war actively being fought under the most terrible conditions in this country. I care. They're not my leaders, and it's not my government anymore. They have subverted my government, destroyed it from within, and my only hope is that I can find enough good American patriots who are moral, who are good men, who understand what liberty and freedom is all about, to go in there and restore constitutional Republican government by any method that it requires, including the force of arms. Otherwise, my children and my grandchildren and my great-grandchildren are going to be slaves. It's not my system. It is not operating within the boundaries of the Constitution. They have thrown the Constitution out. It is treason in operation. There is a subversion of government going on as we speak in the halls of government throughout this country, not just in Washington, D.C. Absolutely. They have declared war upon me and all patriots and everybody in this country who is a loyal constitutionalist, who has taken an oath to protect and defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And if the Civil War has to start on my doorstep, that's as good a place as any. Somewheres, might as well start right here. We spoke to Sheriff Arthur Lee last night. Arthur Lee says that I'm right, that he has jurisdiction over the feds in this county, and he has told them not to come in this county and harass this family. Sheriff, this is a good American community here, and there is a very strong militia, and not just here, but good, solid Americans all across this country are sick and fed up, and we know that if they attempt anything here, there's going to be a war the likes of you can't conceive of what's going to happen. Your vote doesn't mean a damn thing, and if you haven't figured that out yet, then you're too far gone to even be listening to me. My head caved in. I've lost my left leg in this fight. We've been shot at. We've been threatened. They made it so that we couldn't work for anybody. But, that's exactly what happened to the Founding Fathers. They lost everything. They lost their families. They lost their children. They lost their wives. They lost their property. They lost limbs. They lost everything. Well, I believe it was about 3.8% of all the people in the colonies helped found this nation and fought the Revolutionary War to create it and give what they called their posterity liberty and freedom. And the United States government was created to protect the rights of individuals, whether or not they voted. No matter what happened, they were supposed to stay within the bounds of the Constitution and protect the rights of individuals, and guaranteed us in that document constitutional Republican government, not just in Washington, D.C., but in every state, every county, every city of this country. Not only that, I'm right within the law. I am right under the Constitution, and I am right within the law, and it's all posted on my website. They lose. They either back down and get within the bounds of the Constitution, they lose. They come up here and they kill us all, they lose. And we're still free. Now, a lot of people aren't going to understand that, but I'll still be free. That's right, and none of us are afraid. We are Christians. We know that if we do the right thing, God is going to smile at us when we get to those pearly gates. However people view those pearly gates, I don't care. Well, the only thing I can say to them, they're not going to like being slaves either. That badge and that gun isn't going to give them any special privileges in the New World Order. In fact, if they'll read State Department Publication 7277, they'll find out that most of their law enforcement agencies are going to disappear except for a small group that will be just used to maintain internal order once they have everybody in the bonds of enslavement. And also, if they study the history of socialism and communism, everybody who helped socialism and communism come to power are the first people that they eliminate once they have welded the last chains in place. Against the Constitution now, they'll go against socialism later. So all you little traitors marching around out there think you're going to be some big whiz in this New World Order. You're not. You're gonna be right up there on the scaffold, hanging with the rest of them.